you will, just to
Sure.
kind of recap for our audience who just joined us now. We're understanding that a car was actually trying to ram the White House gates. It just crossed the urgent wires. The president has been briefed on the shots that were fired near the Capitol. It's unclear if the president has been briefed on the part about a car and an armed gunman trying to ram the White House gates and then taking police on a high-speed chase toward the Capitol. Then we understand this car was blocked in by some other police cars, forced off the road. That's when the actual shooting took place on Constitution Avenue. The suspect has been apprehended. We are waiting for a news conference. Capitol Police will hold a news conference. It was supposed to happen a few minutes ago. Clearly, they're trying to get their information together. In the meantime, we can tell you that we still do not know the number of people who were wounded as the shots rang out. Reports of between 6 and a dozen shots on Constitution Avenue. Also reports that a police officer was also wounded, but it's unclear if the officer was wounded in the car chase, maybe being struck by a car, or actually hit by some flying ammunition. I want to bring in Chris Moody. He is a Yahoo News political reporter. He was actually walking on Constitution Avenue. He heard the shots. He joins us now. And Chris, take us through what you saw and what you heard.
Good afternoon. Yeah, I was on Constitution Avenue doing an outdoor interview with Representative Peter King. We finished up. He walked inside, and that's right when I heard several shots down Constitution Avenue. Immediately heard sirens. Immediately, Capitol Police running with their guns drawn to the scene of the crime, or to the scene. I asked if it was gunshots. They confirmed it, and they said, "Get underground now."
And Chris, you were with Peter King. We should note the Intel Committee Chair Peter King. Was somebody coming out and did they grab the congressman and bring him to some point and tell you guys where to go at that point in time?
He had already crossed the street and was into his office building, and that's when I heard the shots. It was just me standing there by myself on the corner. Police were trying to figure out what was happening, but they knew that they wanted us out. They told us to get as far south as we could, and so tourists and staffers were told to cross the street, go towards the Capitol South Metro, which is several hundred yards south of the Capitol building, and then they locked down both the House office buildings and the Capitol for several minutes after that.
Yeah, and just so you know now, Chris, the Capitol has now, the lockdown has been lifted, but give us an idea. We've heard now a number of people may have been wounded, some passersby on the street. Give us an idea. I know the government has been shut down for 3 days. How busy was it in your area, Chris? And give me an idea, if you can, of how many ambulances were on scene and how many different police agencies arrived on scene in the moments after.
Well, because of the shutdown, the Capitol area has been much quieter than usual. There are fewer tourists and fewer Capitol Hill staffers. So they're usually it's covered in people, and now it was pretty quiet when the shots rang out. I saw, I would say, about a half a dozen or so police cars flying down Constitution Avenue toward the scene, and then just moments later, I saw them returning back up. Police closed down the street, pushed everyone south, and we were told just to get underground if we could, but get away. And people, for the time being, at that time, were not allowed to go inside or out. It's on total lockdown in the Capitol Hill offices. Now, these offices are just across the street from the Capitol building. That's where the lawmakers work, and this occurred where all the House members work. The Senate is on the other side, and I presume that was on lockdown as well because of the incident.
Chris Moody, a political reporter for Yahoo.com. Chris, good of you. Thank you for joining us. Again, for those of us just joining us, we're waiting for the Capitol Police to hold a news conference. We expect that to happen any minute, but we're told that a car actually tried to ram the White House gates. This person was armed, clearly because he opened fire a short while down the road on Constitution Avenue. He opened fire. 6 to a dozen shots. Unclear. We should find that out in the news conference. But trying to ram the White House gates brings this to an entirely different level. And I want to bring in the host of Special Report, Bret Baier. And Bret, as you go through this, Catherine Herridge kind of gave us a pretty good timeline of what she knows. Yeah, stand by while they're getting Bret hooked up. We're going to go to Mike Emanuel. He's live for us on Capitol Hill. Mike, Catherine kind of laid out a pretty good timeline and a pretty good chain of events connecting the dots of what happened. Give us an idea what's happening right now where you are, Mike. We know the lockdown has been lifted. What's the talk, and what are congressional members saying or doing, if anything?
Trace, I've talked to some really good sources here on Capitol Hill who say the suspect was a woman, had a small child in the car, that she rammed a barricade, a police barricade near the Capitol, injured a police officer in a cruiser, The officer was airlifted out of here by helicopter and is receiving treatment. My understanding is the woman may have been shot and that the child in the car is okay, but I don't have a final status of what happened to the woman. But apparently, after ramming the White House gates, came down here to the Capitol, ran through a barricade, injured an officer. The officer has been taken for treatment, and the coast is now clear. They've cleared the situation, so clearly they feel like there's no longer a threat to lawmakers or staffers up here on Capitol Hill. Trace.
So I can hear kind of the buzz behind you, Mike. Normally you do live shots there, and it's fairly quiet for where you are in the Russell Rotunda. Give me an idea of the activity going on behind you, because it sounds, at least in my ear, like it's fairly loud where you are right now.
No question about that. We heard sirens flying by just at rapid speed, and then we heard officers yelling from outside, get away from the windows. And so anytime you have something like that around a federal government facility, there's a buzz that generates, there's adrenaline that gets going, and you're wondering what the heck's going on, to hear cars going by so fast and so loud. And so to hear that kind of disruption in the middle of the day was certainly unusual. Drew a lot of people here to see what they could see of Constitution Avenue, which is not far from where I'm standing. And at this point, though, the good news is there was a green screen that came up on our television monitors saying that the situation was clear. It was now safe to go outside of your offices. But for an hour or so, it was quite tense, Trace.
Mike Emanuel, stand by, if you will, live for us on Capitol Hill. The headline, of course, that Mike just brought us there is that this suspect has now been confirmed by Fox News. It is a woman who apparently tried to ram the White House gates, then tried to ram through a barricade near Capitol Hill, and then opened fire on an unknown number of people. And again, earlier we mentioned the fact that she tried to ram the White House gates, and she had a baby inside the car. Brings this to an entirely different level. Let's bring in the anchor of Special Report, Bret Baier. And Bret, the president clearly has been briefed about the shooting. It's unclear if he was briefed about the ramming of the gates, but this is quite a different matter.
Sure, Trace, and any time the president would be briefed on any of this, especially if it happened at the White House, they would take all precautions. I'll read a statement that we got from a White House official in just a moment. But adding to what Mike just reported, I have another couple of sources up on Capitol Hill, lawmakers who have been briefed on this situation, and they say that in fact it was a woman, that the Capitol Hill police officer was hit, as Mike mentioned, by a cruiser. He was hit by a car, and that the shots were fired, and that at least one civilian, according to two sources up on Capitol Hill, was hit by gunfire. Now, we'll wait to hear what exactly comes from Capitol Police in their statement in just a moment from this press conference. And again, back to the White House. This is from a White House official. The president was briefed on the reports of gunfire at Capitol Hill this afternoon. White House staff are in touch with law enforcement and monitoring the incident. Questions about security posture at the White House should be directed to the Secret Service. We've talked to the Secret Service. They confirmed that it was this effort to get in at the 15th Street gate of the White House, which is right by the Treasury Department. And this young woman, apparently, from the reports we're hearing, tried to get into the gate some way with her car, whether it was ramming the barricades that come up right outside the gate there on 15th Street at the White House. We don't have a depiction as of yet, but then this started a high-speed chase from the White House to Capitol Hill that ended on 2nd and Constitution, and it's being described that she got out of the car and started firing. That's where we are. She is in custody, according to two sources.
And that is that we have confirmed that she is, in fact, in custody and had a baby in the car. But if you can, Bret, just take us back to when you were the chief White House correspondent. You have been there a lot. If, in fact, this car was to make it through those gates, and I'm not sure how fortified they are, but if the car was to make it through those gates, Bret, what happens then? What's the security in and around the White House to make sure that this car doesn't go any further? Or what would the scene be at that point in time?
It's massive, Trace. I mean, the security apparatus around the White House, if there is some effort to get through those barricades, would just it would just infest that area. There are a ton of Secret Service officers. We saw just a couple of weeks ago, on the same day, the Navy Yard shooting here in Washington. There was a guy who threw firecrackers over the fence. You saw all of the uniformed and non-uniformed officers jump on that person. It's massive. There's a huge barricade in front of the gate I'm talking about. It's actually behind the White House. As you look at it right here, that's the north lawn that you're looking at. And on the other side is 15th Street by the Treasury Department. Huge barricade, and you couldn't get a car through there.
And you see the guy on the roof there, Brett. That's standard operating procedure.
Oh, sure. Yeah, they always have people on the roof. Sometimes you see them, sometimes you don't. But there are Secret Service officers and agents all over the White House. It is a massively protected, as you can imagine, facility.
Yeah, I can imagine. Brett Baer, Brett, stand by if you would for us. Just to update people on breaking news happening in D.C. right now, we are told that a woman with a baby in a car in a black sedan tried to ram the White House gates, and then she took police on a high-speed chase. She rammed a barricade, was apparently forced off the road by a number of police squad cars. As she got out of the car, she opened fire. We do not know the type of weapon, and we do not know exactly how many people may have been wounded. We do know this all originated at the White House. Let's get back now to Wendell Goler. He is live on the north lawn at the White House with brand new information on this. And keep in mind, Wendell, we are still waiting for a news conference from Capitol Hill Police. We see the microphones. If that news conference starts, we'll jump in. But Wendell, what else do you know?
Well, the president's aides are in touch with Metropolitan Police, with the Capitol Police, with the Uniform Division of the Secret Service, which, of course, is the police agency involved in the barricades a block away from the White House on four sides, if you will, which, as Brett described, is where this incident began. 15th Street, a block away from 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, has barricades that include tons heavy pylons that sink into the ground to allow a car to pass and are raised to prevent a car from passing. Cars have crashed into those, one at 17th Street at speed, 40 miles, 50 miles an hour, and they cannot penetrate them. There was never any danger of the car getting in here and threatening the president, who right now is in the West Wing of the White House and who has been briefed on this. But once again, this is a heavily fortified area, has been since the Oklahoma City bombings, out of an abundance of fear that a terrorist could attempt to commit an act even with the tourists in front of the White House. So Pennsylvania Avenue was cleared for a while. It has now been reopened. People are in Lafayette Park across the street from the White House, and all is secure here. Trace?
And just so we're clear on this, Wendell, you said the president is now inside the White House. At the time of this, by our clock, maybe 45 minutes ago, was the president also inside the White House at the time the gates were rammed?
He was indeed. He was in the West Wing, Trace.
Wendell Goler live for the White House. Wendell, stand by if you can. Brett, the next steps in this investigation, you know it's going to be intense. You know they're going to go over every bit of this from the White House gates all the way down to the Capitol. We have unconfirmed reports that the woman may have been wounded or injured in some capacity. Again, that is not confirmed, so we cannot tell you as for a fact that happened, but the Capitol Police will come out very early in the investigation, Brett. What are we looking for as they give us this news conference? What tips are we looking for from them?
Well, specifically, just the rundown of how this all happened. We're starting to piece it together, and as we do in breaking news situations, you want to lock down information and not go with something that is not confirmed. And so far, we have confirmed from multiple sources that she tried to ram through the 15th Street gate at the White House. That started this chase that went from 15th in Pennsylvania all the way down Constitution Avenue. She was pulled over somehow by police chasing her, whether they knocked her off the road or whether she just was pulled over at 2nd and Constitution. And at some point, shots were fired. Now, whether she got out and shot and actually fired shots. Several sources are saying she did not. Others are saying that she may have. So this is what we need to learn is exactly what happened and what police did to take her down. She is in custody as of this moment, and the House is reconvening in 9 minutes, I'm told. So it is going back to normal order on Capitol Hill.
Yeah, and that is a key point as to whether she fired shots or if the shots were fired in her direction. Bret Baier, again, great work. Stand by if you win. I want to bring in Congressman Peter King. We talked earlier to a political Yahoo reporter named Chris Moody. Chris was actually interviewing Congressman King during the car chase and the subsequent shooting. And Congressman King, can you tell us exactly what you saw, what you heard while this car chase was going on?
Actually, I was being interviewed by the Yahoo reporter, but it was on the House side, so I wasn't aware this was happening. I guess was lucky, and as I said just along to the reporter outside the Cannon building, and I went into the building. It would have been about 2:25. Suddenly, I heard the sirens, the public address announcements going off, saying the shots were being fired. There was a shooter loose, and we should stay in our offices. And again, this is like the highest notice you can get. It says gunshots have been reported. And this came in about 2:28. But before that, it was announced. I guess about 2:25, it was announced over the speaker, requiring everyone to close, lock, and stay away from external doors and windows. And it was and then you can see all the police vehicles outside, the lights and the sirens. But again, when Chris Moody was interviewing me, unless he heard it, we didn't hear the shots. We were not aware this was going on, I guess, behind us. And then I went into the building, and that's when I realized what had happened.
And as a member of the Intel Committee, Congressman, give us an idea. We are still waiting for Capitol Police to give us an update. We have just been told, by the way, that one of the Capitol Police officers that was injured was apparently injured by a car. The severity, again, unknown, and we do not know if the picture of the person being taken away on a stretcher was that Capitol Police officer, but the officer was not hit by gunfire, apparently wounded during the car chase and the subsequent pulling off or pit maneuver that they did against the car to pull off on the lawn. And Congressman, in the hour, exactly 1 hour since this happened, what have you learned about this crime?
I tell you, basically, it's so fragmentary. Other than the fact that it began in the location of the White House, I did hear, and I can't give the state, but it was an out-of-state plate. It was not a Washington D.C. license plate that was on the vehicle, and that again, there was a woman. First report said that she had been that she was dead. Now they're saying she's in custody. So that's why I'm reluctant to say very much. The reports are coming in a fragmentary way, but I was told about 15, 20 minutes ago that actually, there was a female suspect, and she had been killed. But now the reports are that she was actually taken into custody. So, again, it's all fragmentary, and, the earliest news is always the most confusing. Other than to say, on Capitol Hill here, it was certainly a frenzied scene with police vehicles, lights, sirens, the SWAT team type officers were there, the special operations units, and well, then we got notified at 3:01 that the order had been lifted as far as the shelter in place. So Capitol Police had it under control very quickly. So it went from about 2:25 to 3 o'clock.
Congressman Peter King, Congressman, thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome.